The morning I needed my children, none of them came. That is difficult for me to say, because I spent most of my life believing I had given them everything: tuition, cars, rent, down payments, emergency checks. If money could solve a problem, I was already reaching for my pen. But at 79, sitting alone beneath the white lights of a hospital room, I finally understood something. I had given my children many things. I had not always given them what love required. My name is Walter Bennett. I live in a small brick house outside Columbus, Ohio. My wife, Elaine, died 4 years ago. We raised 3 children there: Kevin, Laura, and Mark. They are grown now, with homes, jobs, and complicated lives of their own. For years, I told anyone who would listen that family came first. I believed it. I also believed the proof was how much I provided. I worked late, saved carefully, and made sure my children never faced the shortages I remembered from my own childhood. Then, last November, I became dizzy while carrying a box down the basement stairs. I sat before I fell, but I could not stand again. My neighbor Rosa found me after I missed our usual morning wave. An ambulance took me to St. Anne's Hospital. By evening, the doctor said I could go home the next day, but only if someone picked me up and stayed for the first night. I texted all 3 children. "I am all right, but I need someone tomorrow." Kevin replied first. He had promised to take his wife to an appointment. Laura had an important meeting she said she could not move. Mark was 2 states away, trying to keep his restaurant open through a staffing crisis. Each answer was reasonable by itself. Together, they felt like a locked door. Rosa drove me home. She made soup, put my medication schedule beside the kettle, and slept on the sofa. At 3 in the morning, I heard her softly snoring in the next room. I stared at the ceiling and felt an anger so clean and sharp that it almost comforted me. After everything I did for them, I thought, no one came. That sentence became my shelter. It also became my lie. 2 days later, Laura visited with groceries. I expected an apology. Instead, she stood at my kitchen counter and asked, "Dad, do you want the honest answer, or do you want me to tell you I was wrong?" I told her not to be dramatic. She looked at the envelope where I kept my discharge papers. Then she said, "Every time you help us, you keep the receipt." I knew she did not mean paper. I knew exactly what she meant, which is why I became furious. I reminded her that I paid part of her college tuition. I reminded her that I covered 3 months of rent after her divorce. I reminded her about the used Honda I bought when she was 23. I had those memories arranged like medals. Laura listened until I finished. Then she asked, "Do you hear yourself?" That question followed me long after she left. The first memory it uncovered was Kevin's school play. He was 11 and had one line as a train conductor: "I promised I would be there." That afternoon, a client changed the deadline on a construction bid, and I stayed at the office. When I came home, Kevin was asleep. The paper conductor's hat was on his desk. On Saturday, I bought him the red bicycle he had wanted for months. It cost more than I could afford. I watched his face brighten and decided the bicycle had repaired the empty seat in the auditorium. It had not. Years later, when Kevin tried to tell me that his marriage was struggling, I offered to pay for a weekend away. He said he needed someone to listen. I told him rest would clear his head. I solved the expense because I did not know how to sit beside his uncertainty. The next memory belonged to Laura. After her divorce, she came to our house carrying one suitcase and a grocery bag filled with unopened mail. Elaine held her at the door. I went into my office and wrote a check. Laura asked if we could talk after dinner. I spent the meal explaining how she should budget, whom she should call, and what she must never allow again. She did not need a lecture. She needed a father who could hear her grief without turning it into a project. The check paid her rent. My advice kept her silent. Mark was the child most like me. At 36, he opened a small restaurant with blue booths and only 12 tables. I lent him the final $20,000. He thanked me and promised to repay every cent. At first, I visited once a month, then once a week. I questioned his prices, his menu, his cook, and the color of the sign. Whenever Mark resisted, I said, "I have a stake in this too." That was technically true. It was also how I turned help into ownership. One night, in front of his employees, I told him he would not have a business without me. Mark walked outside and stayed there until I left. We did not speak for 6 weeks. I called him ungrateful. He called the money a leash. Elaine saw the pattern before I did. She once told me, "Walter, you give them things when you are afraid to give them yourself." I laughed because the sentence frightened me. My father had been a quiet man. He worked with his hands, paid every bill, and never said he was proud of me. On my 18th birthday, he gave me a toolbox. It was sturdy, useful, and completely silent. I promised my children would receive more from me. They did receive more. More money, more opportunities, more rescue. But I had inherited my father's silence and dressed it in generosity. Providing was the safest form of love I knew. It allowed me to feel essential without feeling exposed. If my children needed my money, they still needed me. If they chose differently after accepting it, I felt rejected. So I reminded them of the cost. Here is the sentence I wish I had learned 40 years earlier. A gift stops being love the moment it becomes a receipt. That does not mean parents should never help their adult children. It does not mean every request must be granted. It means help and control are not the same thing, even when they leave the same bank account. Many parents give from a place of genuine tenderness. We remember the years when a warm coat, a repaired car, or a paid bill could protect a child. The trouble begins when the child becomes an adult, but our giving still demands the obedience of childhood. Generosity can open a door. It cannot decide who walks through it, where they go next, or how often they return to thank us. The hospital did not prove my children were selfish. It revealed the relationship we had all learned to expect. I rarely asked plainly for company. I usually said, "Do not bother, I can handle it." Then I quietly judged anyone who believed me. My children had learned that being near me often came with an evaluation. Their jobs could be better. Their houses could be cleaner. Their choices could be wiser. Money was rarely offered without a suggestion, and suggestions were rarely allowed to remain suggestions. I wanted them to come because they loved me. I had spent years making every exchange feel like a debt. That realization did not excuse their absence. Families can hurt each other in more than one direction. My children could have rearranged more. They could have called again. I can name their failure without using it to hide my own. Repair began with a Sunday lunch at my kitchen table. I asked all three to come. This time, I did not prepare a speech about sacrifice. I placed the old toolbox in the center of the table and told them what Elaine had said. Then I apologized without listing what I had paid for. That was harder than writing any check. Kevin said the bicycle had been beautiful, but he would have traded it for seeing me in the third row. Laura said my help after her divorce kept her housed, yet my questions made her feel ashamed. Mark said he appreciated the loan, but every visit to his restaurant felt like an inspection. I listened. When I wanted to defend myself, I touched the scratched metal handle of the toolbox and stayed quiet. No single lunch repaired decades. Mark still keeps a careful distance when we discuss business. Kevin does not suddenly tell me every fear. Laura still watches my face before sharing a decision. Trust returns slowly because it wants evidence, not promises. But our family is changing. I stopped offering money before asking what someone actually needs. Sometimes Kevin wants advice. Sometimes he only wants me to say, "That sounds hard." Laura and I now have breakfast on the first Saturday of each month. I do not bring a budget. Mark repays his loan automatically, and I do not comment on his menu unless he asks. I also stopped treating my children as my only possible source of care. Rosa and I trade grocery trips. I joined a Thursday morning group at the community center. I have learned the names of people I once passed with only a nod. Depending on others is not a failure of parenting. Building a wider circle is not a betrayal of family. Love becomes lighter when no single person is forced to carry every need. If you recognize yourself in my story, begin with one honest question. When you give, are you offering a gift or are you purchasing influence? Before helping, ask what help would look like. The answer may be money. It may be time, privacy, a meal, a ride, or 10 quiet minutes without advice. Make gifts clear. If repayment is expected, call it a loan and agree on the terms. If nothing is expected, do not collect gratitude later during an argument. Offer your presence before your solution. Sit at the kitchen table. Attend the ordinary event. Make the phone call when there is no emergency. People remember who shared the room, not only who paid the bill. Practice hearing no. Adult children are allowed to have schedules, limits, and opinions that disappoint you. A boundary is not always rejection. Sometimes it is the structure that lets a relationship survive. And if an apology is needed, do not attach an invoice. Say what you did. Name the effect. Ask what repair might look like. Then allow the other person to decide how quickly trust can grow. Your children may also owe you an apology. You can ask for accountability without turning your entire history into evidence for the prosecution. The goal is not to prove who sacrificed most. The goal is to make the next conversation safer than the last one. Last week, Kevin came by to fix a loose handrail on the basement stairs. I started to tell him the proper way to anchor it. Then I caught myself and made coffee instead. When he finished, we sat on the back step. There was no crisis and no envelope between us. He told me about his wife's new garden and asked whether I remembered his conductor's hat. I told him I remembered the empty seat more. He nodded. Then he said, "You are here now." At 79, I cannot return the missed evenings, unsay the cutting reminders, or turn every check into a conversation. But I can stop keeping score today. So can you. Give what you can. Ask for what you need. Let love be generous, but let it be free. If this story brought someone to mind, tell me in the comments, what is one gift you can give without keeping score?